Um, Dinner took longer than expected.
Well, as you can see, I am in fact still eating mine. You can probably hear in the background that I have taken the computer downstairs to eat, and we have a request for Finding Nemo behind us.
Yeah, that will happen. I hang on.
We're very organized tonight. It does me no good to ask these questions. For anyone who's wondering, I'm eating some really delicious lentils and roti that my roommate made. They are super good, which is why I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna finish it. Also, I'm on my internal mic right now, and I just remembered it's very quiet, so you probably can't hear what I just said. Sorry. I'm eating lentils. They're delicious. That's what I said. Probably go upstairs and get my
I heard you. I heard you. You're doing good.
You heard me, yes. I just don't know if the folks at home heard
me. Is it my turn to read?
It is. Ooh,
all right.
Started. I have an update on the Lord of the Rings Marvel crossover.
Ooh, yeah. Oh.
One moment.
Well, tell when you're done chewing.
So, had a conversation about this on Twitter, completely unrelatedly. The person doesn't watch the podcast, but their point was, and I thought it was a good one, that it really, Steve is Aragorn and Bucky is Arwen.
The dark-haired beauty who's lived so much longer than our hero and is wiser, but will stick by him nonetheless.
And has very few lines, and the romance is mostly in the subtext.
The romance is entirely in the subtext. Yeah. It scans.
It scans. So we've got that nailed down.
Good.
So we just need Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Boromir, and Faramir?
Yeah, because Tony will always be Gandalf.
Tony will always be Gandalf. Clint and Natasha will always be
Legolas. Yeah.
Steve is Aragorn. Bucky's Arwen. Now that we've established that, we can move forward.
Our Merry and Pippin are, I mean, we've got so many wisecracking Marvel characters that are just like...
Oh, wait. Scott Lang and Luis.
I could see that, except they're barely in. Like, they're so great, but they've only got like a movie and a half.
Is it my problem that Marvel doesn't recognize a good thing? No. Tell me you can't...
Let it stand for now. How's that?
Tell me you can't picture Luis listing all of the meals that he eats on the daily.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I feel like there's someone more central. There's Thor and Bruce have a lot of scenes that are very Merry and Pippin kind of scenes. Hey, wait, I'm mighty. Are you there?
I'll consider it.
Okay. Gotta have our... It's like drawing the Last Supper as characters from Firefly. You have to have your main cast accounted for first. So you gotta have, like, people who are in all the movies happy.
As in Tony's driver happy?
Yeah, as in Jon Favreau happy.
Whilst I love and respect Happy Hogan as a character, if you're going to tell me that he's a bigger character than Ant-Man, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree.
No, but he's a bigger character than Luis.
Slightly. Iron Man's had more movies than Ant-Man. Come talk to me in like Generation 4.
You just what who who could we use Bruce for? Poor Bruce, he's getting totally sidelined.
Faramir, because he always gets totally sidelined.
He's always right.
Precious cinnamon bun, too good for this world, too pure.
Yep, always makes the right choice. Helps other people make the right choice. I don't know if that kind of scans. Where were we? The Shadow of the Past.
Shadows of the Past, and we had just gotten to the black speech on the ring, so the paragraph after that is where we want to pick up. Mute, because I will be chewing.
I cannot read the fiery letters, said Frodo in a quavering voice. No, said Gandalf, but I can. The letters are Elvish, of an ancient mode, but the language is that of Mordor, which I will not utter here. But this, in the common tongue, is what is said, close enough.
He doesn't have to utter it, because you did last week.
Well, he's not going to say it in the black speech. Yeah. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. It is only 2 lines of a verse long known in elven lore. Incidentally, this poem takes 20 seconds to recite, if you want to go there. If you have hand-washy reasons to know things that are 20 seconds long. 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. And now you rinse. He paused, and then...
No, wait. That's the dentist. Never mind. If the dentist is reciting that...
What's that?
What did you say?
I said, dear God, don't spit. We have enough trouble with germs right now.
No, I was thinking of like the dentist, and then I was like, no. If the dentist is reciting that while they're drilling your teeth, you either have a really great dentist or a really terrifying dentist.
I would never go anywhere else.
Of course you wouldn't.
Right. Incidentally, did I already tell you this? I was washing my hands at Target the other day, reciting this, and I got to in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. And a woman walked up behind me and said, oh, nice. And she started washing her hands and said, give me the child. Through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, I have fought my way.
Yes.
Nerds rock.
Yes. Side note, during a root canal, you could get through like half of the Lay of Lúthien. It'd be great.
It's true.
All
or
right.
the song that Bilbo makes up. Yeah, I had almost finished cooking dinner. Dinner's starting now. The thing is, while I was cooking dinner, I ate a bunch of bacon, so I'm not going to starve.
If you need to go eat dinner.
No, we're cool.
Okay.
They understand, but next time I need to be more on point with the cooking dinner at the right time.
Or more on point with the telling me we need to delay reading. One of the two.
There's no delay, because later on, shit gets even thicker. Gandalf paused and then said slowly in a deep voice, "This is the Master Ring, the one ring to rule them all. This is the one ring that he lost many ages ago to the great weakening of his power. He greatly desires it, but he must not Get it." Frodo sat silent and motionless. Fear seemed to stretch out a vast hand, like a dark cloud rising in the east and looming up to engulf him. This ring?" he stammered. How on earth did it come to me?" "Ah," said Gandalf, "that is a very long story. Settle in." That's my commentary.
Oh, I thought you just said that.
Nobody in Lord of the Rings says that's too long a story, I won't tell it. They say, "Oh, that's way too long a story," and then they tell it.
Okay, but does anyone in real life ever say that's too long a story, I won't tell it? Because I submit to you that no.
Yeah, that's one of the more accurate readings of human nature right there.
Thanks.
The beginnings lie back in the black years, which only the lore masters now remember. If I were to tell you all that tale, we should still be sitting here when spring had passed into winter. But last night I told you of Sauron the Great, the Dark Lord. The rumors that you have heard are true. He has indeed arisen again and left his hold in Mirkwood and returned to his ancient fastness in the Dark Tower of Mordor. That name even you hobbits have heard of, like a shadow on the borders of old stories. Always after a defeat and a respite, the shadow takes another shape and grows again.
Ain't that the truth?
I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo.
And Gandalf
So
said,
do
"Don't be a little bitch."
So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. And already, Frodo, our time is beginning to look black. The enemy is fast becoming very strong. His plans are far from ripe, I think, but they are ripening. We shall be hard put to it.
They're like slightly green bananas.
Plantains?
No, those are completely different. That's
not quite right. Got it. All right.
If bananas are plans, plantains are more like schemes.
I didn't know if you were tangenting or non sequituring. It's hard to tell.
No, it's just his plans are not yet ripe, but they're ripening like slightly green bananas.
Exactly. We shall be hard put to it. We should be very hard put to it, even if it were not for this dreadful chance. The enemy still lacks one thing to give him strength and knowledge to beat down all resistance, break the last defenses, and cover all the lands in a second darkness. He lacks the one ring. The three fairest of all the elf lords hid from him, and his hand never touched them or sullied them. 7 the dwarf kings possessed, but 3 he has recovered, and the others the dragons have consumed. 9 he gave to mortal men, proud and great, and so ensnared them. Long ago they fell under the dominion of the One, and they became ring-wraiths, shadows under his great shadow, his most terrible servants. Long ago. It is many a year since the 9 walked abroad. Yet who knows? As the shadow grows once more, they too may walk again. But come, we will not speak of such things even in the morning of the Shire. What drives me nuts about Frodo, who is definitely more of a badass in the book than he ever is in the movie, but when he's being chased by the ringwraiths, he never remembers this chunk of this conversation. Like it just, there's too much information, and it just vanishes.
I mean, he's probably in shock. He wasn't taking notes.
At no point
say, like, let me just jot this down, said Frodo.
Right.
First of all, in Sauron there are 9 ringwraiths, so let's jot that down.
Yeah, 9 terrible servants who answer to his call, yeah. And in 6 months, because yeah, that's how long it takes him, I'm going to get chased by 9 things, and I won't remember this, and it's so obvious to a reader, but of course.
Yes, but it isn't 6 months for us.
Exactly, and we've read it 150. Well, we've experienced the story 150 times, so it will always be obvious. I think Dickens said it best in Christmas Carol. He was like, eventually it occurred to Scrooge, as it would have occurred to you immediately, because it is always the person not in a situation who knows what ought to have been done in the situation and would unquestionably have done it.
Yes.
Salty bitch.
A lot of salty bitches in history.
Only the best. Anyway, so it is now 9. What?
We can make that our pull quote for this episode. A lot of salty bitches in history.
So it is now. The 9 he has gathered to himself, the 7 also, or else they are destroyed. The 3 are hidden still, but that no longer. He only needs the 1, for he made that ring himself. It is his, and he let a great part of his own former power pass into it so that he could rule all the others. If he
straight up dumb. Like, come on, dude, you just made yourself a MacGuffin.
Exactly. Well, he'd never even heard of a MacGuffin.
That was his problem.
That is the problem indeed. If he recovers it, then he will command them all again, wherever they be, even the 3, and all that has been wrought with them will be laid bare, and he will be stronger than ever. And this is the dreadful chance, Frodo. He believed that the 1 had perished, that the elves had destroyed it, as should have been done. But he knows now that it has not perished, that it has been found. So he is seeking it, and all his thought is bent on it. It is his great hope and our great fear. Why wasn't it destroyed? Cried Frodo. And how did the enemy ever come to lose it if he was so strong and it was so precious to him? He clutched the ring in his hand as if he saw already dark fingers stretching out to seize it. It was taken from him, said Gandalf. The strength of the elves to resist him was greater long ago, and not all men were estranged from them. The men of Westerness came to their aid. That is a chapter of ancient history which it might be good to recall, for there was sorrow then too, and gathering dark, but great valor and great deeds that were not wholly vain. One day, perhaps, I will tell you all the tale, or you shall hear it told in full by one who knows it best. Because he was there.
Indeed. He was there the day the strength of men failed. I can't tell if you are cutting out or not. I can hear you, but your video is just like spinning. Let me go upstairs. It might be my reception on my computer.
Okay. Should I keep reading?
Let's wait for a second.
Okay.
One moment.
I have an itchy back. Oi.
Is it? Yes. Good.
Are we good?
This is my computer. So I'm still probably gonna go upstairs because I think my internet's probably not great.
Oh, all right.
I'll be right.
I will.
Because you are on screen.
All right. I can continue to read. We shall read together. But for the moment, since most of all you need to know how this thing came to you, that will be tale enough. This is all that I will say. It was Gil-galad, Elven King, and Elendil of Westerness who overthrew Sauron, though they themselves perished in the deed. And Isildur, Elendil's son, cut the ring from Sauron's hand and took it for his own. Then Sauron was vanquished, and his spirit fled and was hidden for long years until his shadow took shape again in Mirkwood. But the ring was lost. It fell into the great river Anduin and vanished. For Isildur was marching north along the east banks of the river, and near the Gladden fields he was waylaid by the orcs of the mountains, and almost all his folk were slain. He leaped into the waters, but the ring slipped from his finger as he swam, and then the orcs saw him and killed him with arrows. Gandalf paused, and there in the dark pools amid the Gladden fields, he said, the ring passed out of knowledge and legend, and even so much of its history is known now only to a few, and the Council of the Wise could discover no more. But at last I can carry on the story, I think. Long after, but still very long ago, there lived by the banks of the great river on the edge of Wilderland a clever-handed and quiet-footed little people. I guess they were of hobbit kind, akin to the fathers of the Stoors, for they loved the river, and often swam in it, or made little boats of reeds. There was among them a family of high repute, for it was large and wealthier than most, and it was ruled by a grandmother of the folk, stern and wise in old lore such as they had.
Such as they had. Also,
Such
ow.
Right?
For those who may have been watching, I just dropped my computer onto my shins. And
Ow!
Pointy at the edges. Just FYI. Just found that out. So
I wasn't even looking, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't expecting you to be looking, you were reading, but I had my mic muted, so I was like, ow, and then I was like, this is gonna look very strange on the feed. So that's what happened. And I'm fine.
Oh.
But my shins are mad.
Hey, Mama. All right. Do. The most inquisitive and curious-minded of that family was called Smeagol. He was interested in roots and beginnings. He dived into deep pools. He burrowed under trees and growing plants. He tunneled into green mounds. Ew. And he...
Okay.
Like dead kings, and he's like, ooh, yay, corpse robbing. Like,
oh, I was gonna say, does he want barrow whites? Because that's how you get barrow whites.
That's how you get barrow whites, damn it. Cold be head and heart and bone. That's how he knew that rhyme.
Oh, shit. That is how he knew that rhyme.
We figured you out, Andy Serkis. You never do anything without a reason.
We should have known. We should have known he doesn't do anything. Total sense.
And he ceased to look up at the hilltops, or the leaves on trees, or the flowers opening in the air. His head and his eyes were downward. He had a friend called Deagle, of similar sort, sharper-eyed but not so quick and strong. On a time they took a boat and went down to the Gladden fields, where there were great beds of iris and flowering reeds. There Smeagol got out and went nosing about the banks, but Deagle sat in the boat and fished. Suddenly a great fish took his hook, and before he knew where he was dragged out and down into the water to the bottom. Then he let go of his line, for he thought he saw something shining in the riverbed, and holding his breath, he grabbed at it. Then up... What?
It doesn't make any sense how Gandalf knows this.
Right? Like, what bugs me is, how does he know there were iris flowering? How does he know that... Yeah, I don't know. According to things he hints at, when he finally did get a hold of Gollum, he just sort of read his mind. Because he can do that. And he peeled away the layers of lies until he saw what actually happened, and he's so proud of his ability to do that that he has to share every freaking detail.
I mean, I guess. Jeez, Gandalf.
Right?
Way to
Like,
flex.
as far as I know, the only reason for Smeagol to have a grandmother that was a matriarch is because of a pun in The Hobbit. Because he can't figure out what an egg is in Riddles in the Dark until he remembers that he used to teach his grandmother how to suck eggs.
Okay, all right.
And Tolkien, being him, probably wanted us to believe that that was the origin of the phrase, like people actually did teach their grandmothers. Anyway.
What a weirdo.
Do. Then up he came spluttering, with weeds in his hair and a handful of mud, and he swam to the bank. And, behold, when he washed the mud away, there in his hand lay a beautiful golden ring. It shone and glittered in the sun so that his heart was glad. But Smeagol had been watching him from behind a tree, and as Deagle gloated over the ring, Smeagol came softly up behind. "Give us that, Deagle, my love," said Smeagol over his friend's shoulder. We're going to assume here that Gandalf can do voices, because I can't do Gandalf doing Smeagol's voice. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, don't go that far.
"Why?" said Deagle. "Because it's my birthday, my love, and I wants it," said Smeagol. "I don't care," said Deagle. "I have given you a present already, more than I could afford. I found this, and I'm going to keep it." "Oh, are you indeed, my love?" said Smeagol, and he caught Deagle by the throat and strangled him, because the gold looked so bright and beautiful. Then he put the ring on his finger. No one ever found out what had become of Deagle. He was murdered far from home, and his body was cunningly hidden. But Smeagol returned alone, and he found that none of his family could see him when he was wearing the ring. He was very pleased with his discovery, and he concealed it, and he used it to find out secrets, and he put his knowledge to crooked and malicious uses. He became sharp-eyed and keen-eared for all that was hurtful. The ring had given him power according to his stature. It is not to be wondered at that he became very unpopular, and was shunned when visible by all his relations. They kicked him, and he bit their feet. He took to thieving and going about muttering to himself and gurgling in his throat. So they called him Gollum, and cursed him and told him to go far away, and his grandmother, desiring peace, expelled him from the family and turned him out of her hall. He wandered in loneliness, weeping a little for the hardness of the world, and he journeyed up the river till he came to a stream that flowed down from the mountains, and he went that way. He caught fish in deep pools with invisible fingers, and ate them raw. One day it was very hot, and as he was bending over a pool, he felt a burning on the back of his head, and a dazzling light from the water pained his wet eyes. He wondered at it, for he had almost forgotten about the sun. Then for the last time he looked up and shook his fist at her. Do you know why in Tolkien the sun is always a her and the moon is always a him?
I do not.
It comes in the Silmarillion. Do you want to know?
Sure.
The very paraphrased version, because I frankly can't recall all the details, is that the original light that the world was bathed in came from these two trees that were the source of holy awesomeness, and the trees were poisoned by Ungoliant, the giant spider of darkness and evil who worked with Morgoth. And before they had completely died, the Valar took the light from them and made put them into globes, and one was the sun and one was the moon, and then they said, okay, well, these aren't nearly as bright. They're corrupted light. We're going to have to put them in the sky proper. They'll just have to circle the world, which is flat currently because things. Um, who's going to do this? Who's going to carry them? And there were two Maiar who are there's like the Valar are like gods, and the Maiar are their assistant helpers, demigods, semi-hemi demigods. And the one who stepped forward, who said that they would carry the sun, was this female who was kind of mousy, but when she took the sun, her plainness burned away, and she became this bright, shining, gorgeous creature that was awe-inspiring. And then the Maya who stepped up to say, I'll carry the moon, did it because he had fallen completely in love with her. And so he carries the moon to be near her. And that's why the moon follows the sun in the sky. Which it doesn't, but I mean, just let's go with it. It's mythology.
Exactly. Mythology doesn't make sense.
And so that's as I recall it. And any other Tolkien heads who remember it differently, go ahead and correct me, because I'm not proud. But that's I don't even remember their names, but they were a couple of guardian spirits who cart the heavenly bodies around. But as he lowered his eyes, he saw far above the tops of the misty mountains, out of which the stream came, and he thought suddenly, it would be cool and shady under those mountains. The sun could not watch me there. The roots of those mountains must be roots indeed. There must be great secrets buried there which have not been discovered since the beginning. So he journeyed by night up into the highlands, and he found a little cave out of which the dark stream ran. And he wormed his way like a maggot into the heart of the hills and vanished out of all knowledge. The ring went into the shadows with him.
Wait,
and even
the wing.
The wing of power.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
And even the Maker, when his power had begun to grow again, could learn nothing of it. Gollum, cried Frodo. Gollum? Do you mean that this is the very Gollum creature that Bilbo met? How loathsome. I think it is a sad story, said the wizard, and it might have happened to others, even to some hobbits that I have known. I can't believe that Gollum was connected with hobbits, however distantly, said Frodo with some heat. What an abominable notion! I can't hear you when you're that far back, honey.
I said racist.
It is true all the same, replied Gandalf. About their origins, at any rate, I know more than hobbits do themselves, and I don't intend to share that information. And even Bilbo's story suggests the kinship. There was a great deal in the background of their minds and memories that was very similar. They understood one another remarkably well, very much better than a hobbit would understand, say, a dwarf, or an orc, or even an elf. Think of the riddles they both knew, for one thing. Yes, said Frodo, though other folks besides hobbits ask riddles, and of much the same sort. And hobbits don't cheat. See, he's acting like a petulant shit here, because of course some hobbits cheat.
Bilbo cheated.
A little bit, but I mean under duress. But Ted Sandyman? The hobbits don't fill in the blank. I'm sure Ted Sandyman would. And he's not the only one.
Hobbits don't blank. His statistic is flawed. Ted Sandyman, who absolutely would blank, Not fair, but should have been counted.
It's plot exposition. It has to go somewhere. Thank you. I still have Lady Holiday's entire speech in that scene memorized. And it's a bit of an OCD trigger, where if I start, I have to continue. People's eyes glaze over. It's hilarious.
Good to know. Don't start.
Gollum meant to cheat all the time. He was just trying to put poor Bilbo off his guard. And I dare say it amused his wickedness to start a game which might end in providing him with an easy victim, but if he lost would not hurt him. Only too true, I fear, said Gandalf. But there was something else in it, I think, which you don't see yet. Even Gollum was not wholly ruined. He had proved tougher than even one of the wise would have guessed, as a hobbit might. There was a little corner of his mind that was still his own, and light came through it as through a chink in the dark. Light out of the past. It was actually pleasant, I think, to hear a kindly voice again, bringing up memories of wind and trees and sun on the grass and such forgotten things. But that, of course, would only make the evil part of him angrier in the end, unless it could be conquered, unless it could be cured. Gandalf sighed. Alas, there is little hope of that for him. Yet not no hope. No, not though he possessed the ring so long, almost as far back as he can remember. For it was long since he had worn it much. In the black darkness it was seldom needed. Certainly he had never faded. He is thin and tough still. But the thing was eating up his mind, of course, and the torment had become almost unbearable. All the great secrets under the mountains had turned out to be just empty night. There was nothing more to find out, nothing worth doing, only nasty, furtive eating and resentful remembering. He was altogether wretched. He hated the dark, and he hated light more. He hated everything, and the ring most of all. What do you mean? Said Frodo. Surely the ring was his precious and the only thing he cared for? But if he hated it, why didn't he get rid of it or go away and leave it? You ought to begin to understand, Frodo, after all you have heard, said Gandalf. He hated it and loved it, as he hated and loved himself. He could not get rid of it. He had no will left in the matter. A ring of power looks after itself, Frodo. It may slip off treacherously, but its keeper never abandons it. At most, he plays with the idea of handing it on to someone else's care, and that only at an early stage when it first begins to grip. But as far as I know, Bilbo, alone in history, has ever gone beyond playing and really done it. Can I mention how much that sentence bothers me and why?
Yes.
He's lying. Gandalf is lying his ass off. He's talking about a ring of power, so any of the rings of power, right? Nobody just gives away a ring of power?
Yeah, but someone gave him a ring of power.
No, not Celeborn. Círdan the shipwright. The 3 rings of the elves belonged to Círdan the shipwright and Galadriel and Elrond. And when the wizards arrived, like walked out of the ocean essentially, Círdan took a good look at Gandalf, took off his ring, gave it to him, and said, "You're going to need this more than I do." Gandalf's had it for 3,000 years or whatever it's been.
So I guess the moral here is maybe your bitch ass wouldn't give away a ring of power, but Círdan.
But Círdan is really special in ways I haven't even figured out yet, because he's got a beard, described as a beard. He's the only bearded elf. He's been around since the beginning. He came from like the Holy Lands. Like he's one of the high elves. But he's just kind of Mr. Deus Ex Machina and never ever takes an active role, unless he does in stories that I haven't read yet, because the Silmarillion is deep and heavy and wide and dense.
Heard that, yes.
But so maybe it's the fact that Gandalf isn't allowed to speak, like, we do not talk about elven rings. The first rule of elven rings is we do not talk about elven rings, and that's his only excuse for lying.
Oh man. Here, give me a second, because my computer's being weird, and I know it's just my computer, but I'm gonna try something to try and fix it.
Am I back?
Yes, but my computer's still being weird. Forget it. It's just my computer.
Sorry.
That's alright. It just means I have to look at the little bitty you down at the bottom instead of the like little bitty you right here.
Because I'm here in my own computer. I'm right here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I had Sandy check on her computer, and you're there for her too. So.
Okay, good.
Me.
Do. So yeah. Bilbo alone in history has ever gone beyond playing and really done it, aside from Círdan. He needed all my help too, and even so he would never have just forsaken it or cast it aside. It was not Gollum, Frodo, but the ring itself that decided things. The ring left him. What, just in time to meet Bilbo? Said Frodo. Wouldn't an orc have suited it better? It is no laughing matter, said Gandalf. Not for you. It was the strangest event in the whole history of the ring so far. Bilbo's arrival just at that time and putting his hand on it blindly in the dark. There was more than one power at work, Frodo. The ring was trying to get back to its master. It had slipped from Isildur's hand and betrayed him. Then when a chance came, it caught poor Deagle, and he was murdered. And after that, Gollum and it had devoured him. It could make no further use of him. He was too small and mean, and as long as it stayed with him, he would never leave his deep pool again. So now, when its master was awake once more and sending out his dark thought from Mirkwood, it abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire. Behind that there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ring-maker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that may be an encouraging thought.
Maybe.
Not, said Frodo. Nope. Nope. Though I am not sure that I understand you. But how have you learned all this about the ring and about Gollum? What are your sources?
Please cite your sources. I'm going to need links. I'm going to Snopes this when we're done.
Yeah, no shit. Gandalf is the source of Snopes, you know it. Do you really know it all? Or are you just guessing still? Were there irises, Gandalf? Are you sure?
Are you sure they weren't lilies, Gandalf?
They could have been lilies. Purple flags.
You know, that is a very common misconception.
Is it? Irises and purple flags? I don't know. I'm going with it. You know what I've always wondered? What did Deagle give Smeagol for his birthday?
And why did he get him a birthday present that was more expensive than he could afford?
Right? But what was it? What could he not afford? Was it a toaster?
It's not a toaster.
Comment below. Tell us what you think Deagle got Smeagol for his birthday. Gandalf looked at Frodo and his eyes glinted. Cite your own sources, bitch. No, that's... I know much, and I have learned much, he answered.
One moment.
Yeah, I didn't bring my tea downstairs. I will next time. He answered, but I am not going to give an account of all my doings to you. The history of Elendil and Isildur and the One Ring is known to all the wise. Your ring is shown to be that one ring by the fire writing alone, apart from any other evidence. And when did you discover that? Asked Frodo, interrupting. Just now, in this room, of course, answered the wizard sharply. But I expected to find it. I have come back from dark journeys and long search to make that final test. It is last proof, and all is now only too clear. Making out Gollum's part and fitting it into the gap in the history required some thought. I may have started with guesses about Gollum, but I am not guessing now. I know. I have seen him.
Dun,
You.
dun.
Dun, dun, dun. How are we at? You have seen Gollum, exclaimed Frodo in amazement. Yes. The obvious thing to do, of course, if one could. I tried long ago, but I have managed it at last. Then what happened after Bilbo escaped from him? Do you know that? Not so clearly. What I have told you is what Gollum was willing to tell, though not, of course, in the way I have reported it. Gollum is a liar, and you have to sift his words. For instance, he called the ring his birthday present, and he stuck to that. He said it came from his grandmother, who had lots of beautiful things of that kind. A ridiculous story. I have no doubt that Smeagol's grandmother was a matriarch, a great person in her way. But to talk of her possessing many elven rings was absurd. And as for giving them away, it was a lie. But a lie with a grain of truth. I also wonder what would have happened if Deagle had not had Smeagol with him. Would he have also turned into a mountain-dwelling maggot of shame and horror, or...
On the one hand, maybe not, because Smeagol was clearly already a terrible person. But on the other hand, Deagle hung out with Smeagol, so presumably he was also a terrible person, but maybe
Right?
less terrible.
Maybe, yeah. He was terrible light.
He was the Mitch McConnell to Deagle's Trump. Oh, sorry, did I get political?
You know how hard it's been not to say Miralago instead of Mordor? The murder of Deagle haunted Gollum, and he had made up a defense, repeating it to his precious over and over again as he gnawed bones in the dark until he almost believed it. It was his birthday. Deagle ought to have given the ring to him. It had previously turned up just so as to be a present. It was his birthday present, and so on and on. I endured him as long as I could, but the truth was desperately important, and in the end I had to be harsh. I put the fear of fire on him, and wrung the true story out of him, bit by bit, together with much snivelling and snarling. It's very Jack Bauer right there.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's only the fear of fire. He's not saying he actually set fire to him or anything. Psychological torture.
Didn't, but yes.
Gandalf is not morally pure, everybody.
No. Say it ain't so.
Only one person is actually morally pure.
And that's Sam Gamgee.
Two people are morally pure.
You were thinking of Faramir, weren't you?
I totally was.
This is true. This checks out.
All right. Yeah, I can't think of any moment where Sam Gamgee fails in his moral purity. The difference is Faramir is morally pure because he's noble and wise, whereas Samwise is morally pure because he's just fucking awesome and cheerful and incorruptible.
Put in the comments which type of morally pure you would prefer to be.
Or see in this world.
All day, little Bobby. You must be the precious cinnamon bun you want to see in the world.
Precious cinnamon bun.
You've seen that headline, right?
No.
That Miss will probably explain not only some things that I've been saying, but also some things that your children say. There's an Onion headline, and it's a picture of a cinnamon roll, and it says, "Precious cinnamon roll, too good for this world, too pure."
Oh! See, you stop paying attention to memes for 4 seconds, and they just run all over you.
God knows. I told someone the other day the story of how I learned what YOLO meant by saying what I thought it meant in front of your children.
What did you think it meant?
You obviously like owls. In my defense, owls were very popular that year.
I love it. I love it so much. I'm hashtag.
Well, I had also seen it on a t-shirt.
You obviously like owls?
Yeah, someone was making a joke about YOLO, but I just didn't get the joke.
Oh, okay. You thought it was genuine. I dig. I'm sad that the shirt's already been made.
Yeah, you're too late on that.
I'm too late. It's okay. My t-shirt designs are so delayed. They're like at the bottom of the list of things for me to do. Even though I've got some really good like fan art of fan art of fan art, I really, really want to do a t-shirt with a picture of bushes with heart-shaped leaves and a creature in the bushes that has a chicken head with duck feet and a woman's face, and it would say, "Every day I worry all day." And those of us who are fans would be like, "Ah!" And the rest would be like,
"We all got a chicken duck thing waiting for us."
Yeah.
We actually watched that yesterday. Or no, I think we watched Seagulls, and then we watched Russian Unicorn. Sandy had never seen it.
Oh my god. Did you show her the Bublé reaction to it?
No, actually, but I did show her a little bit of the original video because she'd never heard the song.
Yeah, it's really necessary to fully appreciate the awesomeness of Russian Unicorn. I was actually cooking bacon this afternoon, listening to BLR, and the song My Stick came on. Have you heard it yet?
No.
It's another Yoda song, and the chorus is My stick is better than bacon. Repeated with various degrees of intensity, and I was like, this is so apropos. I love it when the world does that. It's not often, like, it's not like there's a huge amount of bacon songs to be listening to that I know of. List bacon songs.
I was thinking that. In the comments below.
Let us know what bacon songs you can listen to. Let's make it. We've got 3 minutes. Let's see what we can get to before I go eat my belated dinner.
Okay.
The murder of Deagle haunted Gollum, and he had made up a defense, repeating it to his precious over and over again as he gnawed bones in the dark until he almost believed it. It was his birthday, etc. I didn't have to fear of fire. Blah, 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 blah. Wrung the true story out of him bit by bit, together with much sniveling and snarling. There we are.
There we are.
He thought he was misunderstood and ill-used. But when he had at last told me his history as far as the end of the riddle game and Bilbo's escape, he would not say any more, except in dark hints. Some other fear was on him, greater than mine. He muttered that he was going to get his own back. People would see if he would stand being kicked and driven into a hole and then robbed. Gollum had good friends now, good friends, and very strong. They would help him. Baggins would pay for it. That was his chief thought. He hated Bilbo and cursed his name. What is more, he knew where he came from. But how did he find that out? Asked Frodo. Well, as for his name, Bilbo very foolishly told Gollum himself. After that, it would not be difficult to discover his country once Gollum came out. Oh, yes, he came out. His longing...
Oh, wait, no.
His longing for the ring proved stronger than his fear of the orcs or even of the light. After a year or two, he left the mountains. You see, though still bound by desire of it, the ring was no longer devouring him. He began to revive a little. He felt old, terribly old, yet less timid, and he was mortally hungry. Light of sun and moon, he still feared and hated, and he always will, I think. But he was cunning. He found he could hide from daylight and moonshine and make his way swiftly and softly by dead of night with his pale, cold eyes, and catch small, frightened or unwary things. He grew stronger and bolder with new food and new air. He found his way into Mirkwood, as one would expect. Is that where you found him? Asked Frodo. I saw him there, answered Gandalf. But before that he had wandered far, following Bilbo's trail. It was difficult to learn anything from him for certain, for his talk was constantly interrupted by curses and threats. At least not by arguing about minutiae and going off on bizarre tangents.
Hey now. That's what you brought me here for.
I do not disagree.
Damn straight.
Yeah. What has it got in its pockets, he said. It wouldn't say no, precious little cheat, not a fair question. It cheated first, it did. It broke the rules. We ought to have squeezed it, yes, precious, and we will, precious. That is a sample of his talk. I don't suppose you want any more. I had weary days of it, but from hints dropped among the snarls, I even gathered that his padding feet had taken him at last to Esgroth, and even to the streets of Dale, listening secretly and peering. Well, the news of the great events went far and wide in Wilderland, and many had heard Bilbo's name and knew where he came from. We had made no secret of our return journey to his home in the west. Gollum's sharp ears would soon learn what he wanted. I'm done for today.
Okie dokie.
Gandalf isn't going to stop talking like ever.
Also a great tagline for today's show. I have made good progress on my little thingy here, so
it's so pretty. I love it.
Isn't it pretty?
I have made 0 progress on my hawk. We'll do that tomorrow. What? 7 o'clock again?
Works for me if it works for you.
It works for me. I'll just make sure I've eaten by that time.
Cool. I will too, and yeah.
Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow. Love you.
Bye.
Cuidado.
Yamas.